AJ, I'm the Student Council Chair at the Union, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Q&A for our Welfare Officer candidates in the student selections of 2023. Before we introduce the candidates, I'll quickly run through how the session will work tonight. These are not all the candidates, bearing in mind, but you can get a full list at the elections webpage. At first, the candidates will get faced with some preset questions they have been sent previously to familiarise themselves with. After that, we will open up to the floor and to the audience at home to ask any questions that any of you may have. To ask a question, please raise your hand or drop a question in the comment section below. After which, we'll get to the exciting part. The candidates will get to ask each other questions, if they so choose to, about the manifestos or anything that has been debated today. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer questions, and will be strict with timings to allow for an even playing field. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or pop them in the comments below. If you would like to view the candidates' manifestos, you can do so on the website at upsu.net/elections. Voting starts on the 20th of March at 9 AM, and once you have watched all the Q&As this week, you should be able to form your decision on who you would like to vote for. You will be able to place these votes next week via the UPSU website or one of the polling stations around the campus. So let's get started. Let's start off with introductions. First up, Ishak.
Yes. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Ishak. I've been at Portsmouth for 4 years now, having studied economics. And I currently work at the student union already as part of the Better Student Outcome team, working with different heads of schools to try and improve student outcomes with them. And I am also a PGM ambassador, which is a BAME ambassador for my faculty, which is business and law, just representing the needs and wants of minority students, just to help feel better represented and help to improve the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ishak. Next, Ines.
Yeah, hello. So my name is Ines. I'm a third year psychology student, and I'm planning to stay here a little bit longer in Portsmouth because I applied for a master's degree in health or forensic psychology, but I'm still waiting for a response. Yeah, I'm a course rep. I'm a student mentor. It's more like program in psychology department, but I want to extend it for all of us and all faculties as one of my manifestos. What else? I would make Portsmouth a safer place because I know there are some issues connected with spiking and safe overall. So I believe that we as a community, we can make Portsmouth a better place. And that's my goal when I will become a welfare officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now that the candidates have introduced themselves, let's move on to the first segment of the preset questions. First question being, what do you think is the biggest challenge faced by students at the moment? Ines, you could start.
Sure. So I think the biggest problem now is the living crisis. So I can say by my own experience that I'm a part-time employee, and it's really hard to keep up with everything because living costs are ridiculous. And now if I want to save some money, I need to work twice as I worked, for example, a year ago. And yeah, it could be a little bit scary for us. And it's also hard to be a student when we also working. So I know it could be stressing, but I want to show you that I understand that and I'm here for you, and we as university and union, we try to make our best to make uni and other services connected to uni more approachable to you, and we will try to help you with that.
Thank you very much. Ishak.
I actually agree with Ines's points about the cost of living crisis and everything and all of that. That is quite a big stressor, and it does cause quite a bit of anxiety, which is actually kind of leads on to my point, which is one of the biggest problems that a lot of students face is isolation, loneliness, and anxiety. So, for instance, university students aged between 18 to 25 are statistically a lot more likely to experience anxiety or develop anxiety symptoms having been at university. Approximately 37% of students consider that compared to those in that age range who aren't at university, which is only 22%. Still not good, of course, but it's still a problem. I want to combat these feelings of isolation, loneliness, and anxiety, especially these feelings being exacerbated by things like the cost of living crisis, by things like by joining societies and small scenes and not necessarily feeling a part of that, or even in your own courses or your peer groups, and which is something all students may go through or may experience or are at risk of experiencing. So this is one of the biggest priorities of the university to try and work on.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And that concludes the first question. Moving on to the next. What one thing would you most like to achieve or change if you were elected as a welfare officer? Here's Jack, you can start.
One of the main things I want to change is the amount of education around key welfare issues. These welfare issues being sexual violence, misdemeanor or nights out, as well as discrimination based on race or sex or sexual orientation, etc. This is a big priority of mine, and other unions do offer these sorts of programs around the country. And whilst people are aware that these issues are happening, just being aware about something, I don't believe it is simply enough. Having an education on something, having an understanding of what the different types of people go through, like where unfortunately women are statistically more likely to experience sexual misconduct or misdemeanors on nights out, actually actively listening to these groups of people and working on better solutions for them. And for myself, for example, being a PGM ambassador, listening to different students with ethnic minorities, hearing their points of view, their experience, how they feel represented or underrepresented within their own faculties to basically try and improve their experience as well. So this is one of my main priorities I would like to change.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Ines.
So by anti-spiking campaign, which is one of my manifesto points, I want to share knowledge among students about spiking and safety, and that's my biggest goal, which I want to achieve as a welfare officer. And I want to do it with the university as well, because I believe that when we will share our knowledge about spiking and how we can prevent those things, we will make students more brave and more prepared for what will happen to them or could happen, because we can't be with them everywhere, every hour, every day, because it can happen. We don't know what can happen, so at least I want to, with university, prepare our students for those situations, yeah, and just be a listening ear for them, just to show them that they can talk with us, because we are with them, because that's the time when they will fight those things. Actually, is the, like, you know, they need to feel that we are together with them. So I will do this by anti-spiking campaign and also my aftermath committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now moving on to the third question. How do you plan to work with other unions and organisations on a wider national welfare issues? Ines, if you could start.
Sure. So when it comes to spiking issues and sexual harassments and similar situations, I want to work with students group, for example, like self-defense or sensible drug policy, with psychologists and with police, just to talk about the safety and what we can do as a student and university to help other students. And I want to show what I said, that students are not alone and we are together, just to make them more safe, like in well-being, when we're talking about well-being and university satisfaction, because if they will feel safe, actually the well-being will be greater and uni satisfaction will be greater too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michelle.
So, let's say for instance, the University of Southampton. University of Southampton Students' Union have recently introduced free tampons across the campus for free for everyone to use. That's not something we necessarily do. We do offer them at the student union, but is it well advertised? I'm not too sure, I can't really say. I want to improve these advertising and letting people know that these things actually exist, as well as implementing it across campus. And just looking to these other unions, seeing what type of programs they're introducing, and then try and implement it into our own thing. So what are they doing that we aren't? Just learn from them, learn from other unions, communicate with other welfare officers if I get elected. That's one thing I want to do. Another thing I would like to, I would also want to introduce is an anti-spanking campaign, which is happening across different universities around the country. Whilst we do have anti-spanking campaigns, these are run through clubs. Is it good enough? I'm not too sure to say. But what's stopping us, the union, from actually actioning these things and taking on board what they've done, even joining these groups and joining these alliances and learning more from that? These are two things I want to do when I'm working with these other unions. Just taking on their initiatives, working with them, and just learning and understanding how we can develop our own union.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Moving on to our final question. How would you look to implement equality, diversity and inclusivity in your work? Ishak, if you could start.
So I currently already work as a PGM or BAME ambassador to listen to different minority students and to work on improving those things. This is something I will continue to be doing, not necessarily as a PGM ambassador, but just working closely with them, as well as informing students that these programs already exist, bringing them to us, listening to their struggles, getting personal accounts of these things, and then to work on implementing whatever issues they have and try and create initiatives and programs surrounding their issues, their problems.
Thank you very much. Ines.
Yeah, so yesterday I had a nice comparison and I would like to share it with you now. So university is like a dish. It's good, but without spices, it's not that good. And those spices are people who are at university from different backgrounds, cultures and countries, and that makes our uni a better place. And when it comes to cooking, it's also exciting to new recipes and spices because it makes our cooking interesting. And that's the same with uni. People makes this place better and more interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the candidates for their answers. And that concludes the first segment of tonight's preset questions. We'll now move on to the second segment where we open up to everyone viewing or everyone present here if anyone has any questions.
Hello, guys. This question is for both of you. You both mentioned that you wanted to start you wanted to continue an anti-spiking campaign. What does that entail? Does that include in terms of covers for clubs, where people go out, or what exactly are you thinking about in terms of anti-spiking? How would that work? For both of you.
So, I don't know if a lot of you are aware, but on Purple Wednesdays there's already a welfare pit stop, which is there to look after people after nights out or even before nights out. People that might just want to chat, or even going as far as helping people that might have been spiked or that just may be struggling or maybe quite sick, just giving them somewhere to work up, to recover after a night out. It's only on for a Purple Wednesday, which is fine, but not everyone goes out on a Purple Wednesday. There are different nights out throughout the week. In fact, I'm pretty sure every single night out during the week is tailored towards students in that kind of way, where it's not just students, lots of different people, locals or people that travel, and that's fine, that's good, but I believe that we need a representative from the union working these nights. I think this will also help with the anti-spiking campaign that's already going on. To add to it, people do, and sometimes will, unfortunately still get spiked. We can work towards reducing the amount of times that this happens, but if it's still going to happen, we still need to be held accountable for it. So this is something we still need to, that I would like to implement as well.
Fantastic, thank you.
So I agree with Ishak, and I believe strongly that sharing knowledge about what can we do about those situations, and it will help us to prepare ourselves to prevent those things, and also we can try to buy, or I will to buy maybe some couple of, like, there are some bottle caps or lids on the cans, so that's really good idea to just keep it with you and just use it in the club so we can prevent those spiking too. Also, I think self-defense would work out, because if people will feel like, okay, I can do this, I can prevent those situations, I'm ready for this. So it will help people a lot because they will feel more safe, I believe. And yeah, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Fantastic. Let's go there.
Just a question for Ines really. So with the self-defence and that sort of thing, that's a great idea, but it's more preventative. So what sort of support would you recommend putting in place for those that have unfortunately shortfallen to this sort of thing?
That's a good question, thank you. So one of my manifesto points is aftermath committee, which will help people who are meet those situations. So we will help those people and try to help them as much as we can. I want to involve some psychologists, police, and also university staff to help those people after these traumatic situations. And also, I can't say people who are doing spiking and sexual harassment, hey, stop, because it's bad. It's ridiculous to say that. For me, it's not ridiculous, but those people will do it anyway. So I think my best option, and for university, the best option is to share knowledge. Because if we cannot prevent those people to doing those things, those bad things, we can't help people to be ready for those things. So that's why that's my biggest goal, to actually share this knowledge, because knowledge is our power here for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions from audience members?
What do you think is the most important thing to ensure around welfare for students? I think for both of you.
Okay. Brilliant. Who would like to attempt that first?
Yeah. I think one of the more important things is combating this, is working with students that may feel lonely and isolation. As I mentioned, quite a few students already feel feelings of anxiety, 37%, right? 1 in 4 students also feel isolation and loneliness, and even to some reports saying they feel sick from loneliness. That's across the board. I think is it one of the priorities or one of the things to look after students' welfare, sorry? To look after students' welfare?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the ways in which I can help to look after students' welfare, just helping to establish that stronger social support, both in different courses, within different societies, within different sports teams. Because even in sports teams, yes, you're part of a team, sometimes you still feel isolated or lonely, or you're not necessarily in with the crowd. You might enjoy playing that sport a lot, but do you feel part of the team? Some people don't. And it happens across the board in different parts of the university. So I believe that that's one of the best ways to look after students' welfare.
Thank you very much. Ines, would you like to answer?
Yes, what can I say? I agree with Ishak. So psychology learned me one thing, maybe not one thing, but I think it's the most relevant one. So whole environment actually acting for us, how we behave, how we react on different things. And if I know this, I can share this with other people, because I believe if we as a university know this, that we can actually have the impact on students' well-being and safety, or even isolation, so we can build up community, so for those people to feel like, oh, someone have my back, and whenever will happen, whenever will say or anything, I think it's good to just know, oh, I have someone who's always with me, and that could be our university. So yeah, I think that concludes the questions and my answer.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions?
What sort of things would you recommend putting in place for societies to make them more inclusive and to sort of take away the culture that some have of being more cliquey and less accepting of other people.
Thank you very much for that question.
Okay. We're already aware that lots of different societies and sports teams have welfare secretaries. They do receive training for these things, but are they receiving training on, say, stuff like active bystander training, making sure that people are not even necessarily just on a night out, just in general training, maybe they don't feel as involved? I think that's something that should be introduced and actually implemented and actually accounted for. As well as the fact that, as well, with one of my manifesto points being advocating for university-wide education and welfare issues, that is actually a key welfare issue. It's a key welfare issue, even though I mentioned it in a separate point in terms of establishing stronger social support. It's a key welfare issue in and of itself. So, by going around and working with these welfare secretaries and with some of the more senior committee members, there's people to be held accountable for it, people monitoring, checking these things, and making just to improve the culture and just sort of basically instill a better culture of safeguarding, looking after the people that are in effect more vulnerable because they are more lonely or because they feel more anxiety in these certain situations.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Ines, would you like to answer as well?
Yes, so one of my points in manifesto is to make welcome community, which I think will apply not only for societies but for whole university, and that means that we will help, for example, not only first year, but we can help all of students, because I know that many of people are moving far away from home, maybe for the first time when they are going for university, and they feel a little bit stressed about it, lonely, because they're far away from homes, they are from different backgrounds. Sometimes people are moving from another countries, as I moved for another country, for example, to study here. And, you know, it's hard at first time, but I feel when we will try to make those community, this welcome community, it will be easier for new people and as well as older, more experienced students to feel more safe and be sure that everything is fine and we have each other back.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Any more questions? Also, right at the back.
This is a question for Ishak. On your manifesto, it says something about establishing stronger student support. I'm not sure if I saw anything about mental health. This is a question for both of you. What would you do to be willing to improve the mental health of students?
Brilliant, thank you very much. Who would like to tackle this one first? It's a question to both candidates, I believe.
Yeah, so is that a question on basically how to combat mental health in that specific point, in terms of establishing stronger social support? Yeah, okay, cool. So that's part of also advocating for key welfare issues. By having people being held accountable for other students' mental health issues or just safeguarding issues or discrimination issues, that is also a way in which I will be advocating for mental health. Yeah.
Ines, would you?
Yeah, so I think my manifesto will apply to it too, because I said something about spiking, about aftermath and welcome community, so I think those three points are also applying to welfare, because if we make sure that these points are checked and we are good with them and our university applies to it, automatically students will feel safer and more satisfied from university. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Another question. A couple of questions. So go for it.
This is the last one I'm taking. Ishak, you mentioned the fact that you wanted to implement the welfare store each year of the week, where especially because students go almost every day out. in terms of the finances of it, how would you fund it? Because it's, even for the current welfare store, it's funded by the union and it costs a lot of money, as it says. And don't mind continuing, but in terms of continuing it every day of the week, how would you fund it? Or what channels would you use to fund it?
That's a fair question, but sorry. Just to be clear, I didn't mean specifically the welfare store. I meant a union ambassador at different nights out, or like a few union ambassadors, which is actually reduces the funding quite a lot. Because with the welfare store, obviously you pay for snacks and you have to re-buy them, and then having people come in, etc. That in itself is relatively expensive for what I'm trying to do. But what I'm thinking of is more in terms of just having 2 union ambassadors, maybe even on Purple Army shift, which if you see people from the union working around in a purple hoodie, they're part of the Purple Army. I even mean things like that, which already exist. We already have the resources for them, and having them go on nights out and having them liaise with different clubs in terms of watching out for student safety specifically. So it wouldn't necessarily be an extra cost or in terms of looking for extra funding.
Brilliant, thank you. I believe we had a question submitted online as well.
A question for both of you. What are you doing to support international students who come to the university?
Ines, would you like to?
Yeah, I
tackle
think it
this
will
one
be
first?
fun to start from now. So I think it's a good question because I'm also the international student, so I can say I feel you guys, all of you. And yeah, I think the good point will be the welcome committee, because it's for all students, not for only international, but here the UK-based students. But yeah, it will help more to, what can I say, be sure or make be confident about those changings, because they are big. When I moved from another country, I just cried for whole first year because I miss my family, and I know how hard it could be for people who are really strong, for example, with their family and friends, just to move out and change environment by 100%. It's really hard, so I understand that, and I believe, as I'm student mentor too, in psychology's department, and I want to just by welcome committee share with this idea with all of you guys and all faculties that this welcome committee will be a great idea just to introduce new students to university, social environments, and just academic life, and that will help international students and other students as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Jack, would you like to take this question?
Okay. Just quickly, last year I lived with a German, a Syrian, and an American. I'm not saying that's my entire experience with international students, but a lot of the common things that I've heard from these people, who 2 of them being first year doing a study abroad program, was they didn't really receive much information as to what the union can offer or different societies. A lot of them, both of them, actually went out their own way to sort of find this information for themselves, which is great that they took the initiative to do that. But if you're coming to a new country, and obviously it's stressful in itself, having to get a visa sorted, potentially even looking for accommodation, that in itself is already going to be an extra difficulty. So I think improving signposting in terms of how students, international students, can get involved in university and feel less homesick or less lonely or isolated in this country is one of the ways I can improve it. And in fact, it is my personal point to improve the welfare disparity for international students, which does not equate. International students are constantly struggling to find accommodation, struggling to find where it is they need to even sort something out like a rail card. Oh, who do we go to? We get the union, students coming into the union a lot, asking something as simple as that. So if it is made clearer to them, and also they are given a more direct avenue to which they can receive the support, and as well get involved properly with the university, I think that's the way in which I can improve it for international students.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the question and both of the responses. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Sorry, just like to have me last one, I promise. Just a quick question for Ishak. You talk about combating loneliness. What might this look like for students that are coming and obviously struggling with this?
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you for the grilling. Just loads of questions. No, it's fine, it's cool. It's so with loneliness specifically, it is a struggle to, even if they're already feeling lonely or feeling isolated, they might even feel anxious in themselves to come out of their shell in order to ask for help. One of the things that university does already is check in with students in terms of if they're not attending or not. But the way in which the university does it sometimes is quite, I want to say, aggressive. In that it's almost as if, like, if you don't attend, this will be you'll receive a caution or receive a warning, or you could potentially be kicked out your course. There might actually be actual issues going on with these people. So if they're able to even communicate with the students in the first place about, if you don't attend, X, Y, and Z will happen, why not communicate about, oh, these are the resources you can go to. You can go to the University Advice Centre. You can come speak to me, the welfare officer, if I'm available, if I'm around. Or the various different welfare options in which are available. I think it's about improving signposting and making it easier for them to come to you, but also just making that initial contact first to try and address these issues, because it's coming from somewhere. You can't just ignore it. You know what I mean?
Fantastic. Thank you for the question and the response. Do we have any more questions from the audience members or anything posted online? If not, that concludes the second segment of this afternoon. And we'll move on to the exciting bit now, where the candidates have the opportunity to ask each other questions based on their manifestos or anything discussed tonight. So, does anyone have any questions?
I actually have a question.
Perfect.
So, Ines, with your anti-spike campaign, it is a very good campaign, it's a good idea. What about it makes it, considering the fact that there are already programs around it happening, what about it makes it a significant enough point for it to be one of your 3 main manifesto points? To you, that is.
So you mean like?
Like, what makes it a big enough priority for it to be one of your main manifesto points?
Yeah, so yesterday, just to be prepared, sorry, I found some numbers from, you can look at it by yourself, it's police.uk, and I found some interesting numbers that actually, just for January 2023, the top one, the first one, reported crime, it was sexual offences and violence, 302 cases. So that's a big number. And actually, I look, because you also take a look what happened 3 years after and before, and actually it doesn't change. The sexual harassment and violence is always the top one from those 3 years. And that makes me scary a little bit. I just look because it's a nice map and you can look actually which particular areas are connected with this. And for example, near Portsmouth and Southsea, there were 5 cases. We're still talking about January 2023. Near Victoria Park, 12. Near Guildhall, 13. Astoria and Rosalind Halls, 23. Historic Dockyard, 9. And John Pound Centre, 6. And those numbers makes me feel bad and anxiety, but I will help you with that. Sorry.
Brilliant.
Take too
Thank you.
long.
It's okay. Do you have any questions for Isha?
Yeah, just I need to, take a look at my notes, sorry. So, Ishak, in your manifesto, you wrote that you want to strengthen bonds among students. And how you will achieve that?
How I'll achieve that is sort of been answered already, but just to sort of briefly go over it. One of the main things is working with societies and sports teams, especially with the welfare sector and senior members of the societies and sports teams, so that they are held more accountable for these issues, to look out for people that might feel less involved, or maybe feel like they're struggling and stuff like that. Sorry. And it's a similar thing as well when working with the different courses in terms of why are people not attending, these sorts of things. These are the ways in which I would want to establish a stronger social support. It creates a stronger community, and community, generally speaking, is what people find most comforting about university, which is why people even join sports teams or society teams, or even just go to lectures. It's because they have a sense of community, they have something in common. If we look for the commonality in terms of different people, because people always, lots of different types of people have something in common with people. So if I use that and I work from there, that's the way in which I will achieve it.
Brilliant. Do any of you have any further questions for one another? Brilliant. Well, in that case, if both of you are happy, that concludes tonight's Q&A session. Thank you very much for everyone joining and to the candidates for the great responses. I would like to remind you, if you do have any questions, whether you're watching at home or here, please send these through and the candidates will receive them. Again, you can see the candidates at the Elections Fair, which is next Wednesday at the Union Building. And I'd like to remind you once again that voting is taking place next week, and it starts at 9 AM on Monday, the 20th of March, and it closes 1 PM on Friday, the 24th of March. There are lots of prizes up for grabs when you take part in voting, and it's an amazing opportunity to have your say in who represents you next year. So thank you very much to everyone here, everyone at home, and to the candidates. Thank you.